Well, let me ask you this question so we can get to it. And I'll probably ask you
Oh yeah,
again.
when do we start the podcast, by the way?
Yeah. Hello and welcome to Center for Victory's podcast of Your Best Day Yet. At Center for Victory, we're here to help unlock, reinforce, and enrich relationships through personal and professional development. I'm Eric Guy, Chief Victory Officer at the Center for Victory. Today with me, a very special guest and a newfound friend, Dr. J.
I appreciate it.
Jay Doran, coming from us from beautiful Naples, Florida, all the way to Pittsburgh to drop some good tidbits of advice for us. Jay, real quick, just because I've been in it and it's making my head hurt every once in a while, is also the author of 30 Days of Thought. This is
Thanks.
what it looks like. We're going to get into this, Jay. I'm holding the spot that I want
I
to
need to
talk
get
to
my
you about.
book.
Yeah, you'll be okay. I've got it
Okay,
for you.
okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I won't get too deep, but just has made me think. Love doing that, but just as a kind of a precursor before I let Jay introduce himself, we were put together by a mutual friend, Mr. Brian Hess, and probably will thank him for years to come now because you really made me understand, Jay. This is a compliment. You made me understand why sometimes I make people's head hurt just because of the questions that we ask. The first time I met you, that's what you did. I'm like, oh, I get it now. That this is why sometimes I drive people nuts.
Well, we can bond over that for sure.
Yeah, for
Good to
sure.
meet you.
So Jay, culture matters. That's your gig. So introduce yourself to our folks and
Thanks.
guys, tune in because this is going to be a great one.
I'm honored to be here and so thankful. I'm on a search, and I think that the business is a byproduct of that search. Search for love, as you put it in your book. Choose love over fear. A search for identity uh, in this culture that we're in, capitalistic identity. As on, I just so the audience is aware, um, I wouldn't consider myself a doctor, but I do consider myself very much in need and a student as a byproduct of that. And I'm dedicating my life, or but up to this point, to helping people and um, and Culture Matters is a consulting firm. We
Mm-hmm.
work deeply with businesses in a various industries to help reveal, curate their culture so the brands aren't a lie
Mm-hmm.
and the people are who they appear to be and the values are lived. And I don't do enough of these shows clearly because and yeah, I this is good practice for me. It's like introduce myself. Man, I think you could do a better job introducing me than me because I spent the last 8 years inculcated with some amazing people, helping them build their cultures and become part of their family and vice versa. And that's a little bit about me. Yeah, there's a book and there's podcasts and there's books I'm reading and there's things I'm studying and there's opinions I have that I change and morph and try to adapt every single day. But yeah, culture matters. I think it matters. And I thought it mattered before the former owner of the trademark gave me the opportunity to invest into it and get it from him. You know, rip it from their grips and pursue caring about culture. So thank you for asking about me and reading the book. Oh my God, I'm overwhelmed with emotion that
Yeah.
you would do that, that you would actually do that.
Well, I mean, I've went. It started hurting my head. So the whole concept when Jay gave me this book is like, hey, look, this 30 days of thought each day. I want you to just to read a passage, and it's a very short passage. I would consider for me, I would call, and how I've used it is sort of a meditation. It's just
Hmm.
what question is this kind of asking me? They're not very long, and there's some writing, and then Jay asks you to go and record a video after each of these, and I would call that a session, right? But some of them, Jay, I mean, I've had to kind of back off a little bit because it's really because where I'm at now, like I'm like, well, what does this mean for me now? Like my 25-year-old self, I would have just ate this up probably all at one time.
Wow.
Now I'm really like looking and saying, okay, maybe a day isn't good enough for me.
I want you to know I'm afraid of that book.
Yeah.
I'm doing it again. I've done it twice.
Yeah.
First of all, I just went, yeah, those may be my thoughts in there, but it's definitely not my book.
Yeah.
It's that's your book. Any listener that gets that book and wants to write their thoughts in the book, because they're going to read what I had once wrote in reflection, then they're going to think and write their own thoughts, film a video. I'm afraid of that book. I just started it up again. I found reasons to not do it. It takes a lot of time. I can't just read one of the excerpts and then not write all my thoughts down and then try to do the video. It takes an hour to do because I'm recording it now for the podcast, the Culture Matters
Yeah.
podcast.
Right.
I'm doing all of them. There's a few hundred, there's like 100 and something odd opportunities to write and think and read, read to think, write to develop. I'm afraid of that book. It's a scary book. I don't know if I even like it.
Well, I've enjoyed it. I wouldn't say that I like it. Because it gets, because it does. I mean, it makes you think, and it's like, oh crap. You know, I'm looking at my entry because you gave this to me at the first of the year. So one of my entries, and I'm so thankful too that I actually did that you have a little section to put the date up in there because I can go back, you know,
Wow.
and go back and we talk, you know, I talk a lot about the difference between love and fear, and one of these passages wasn't very long, but it made me think for like a week. But one of the quotes that you put in there was, "All great fears are worth striving for." And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to write about that. And so I started jotting things down, let it come up about, and I'm like, oh,
Hmm.
there's a lot of truth to that.
Hmm.
Right. And I don't know what, just kind of off the cuff, when I say that to you again, what pops up for you? Like all great fears are worth striving for.
Hmm.
Um, do you have anything that kind of pops
Yeah.
up right now? Because
Yeah.
that could mean a million things to a million different people.
Well, I've heard the term in my life, false evidence appearing real.
Hmm.
And fear, okay, so that's one side of the equation. Let's say that doubt might pop up, which could decrease the likelihood of action towards an aim, action towards an aim based on a desire. There's meaning attached to that. So maybe I'd want to work through my fear to go towards something. Uh, Fear is also extremely helpful, and because so I don't want to necessarily put all fear in the box of false evidence appearing real, because in some contexts I could A, get eaten by that bear. I could B, inflate my accounting of my company to such a degree. I'm Enron. It's like the CFO walks in, hey, sir, CEO, we just spent not only the last dollar, but we actually took money from this part of the company and over here. And oh, that's just fear. You're false evidence appearing real. It's like, well, hold on a second. Self deception is a cousin of power, or maybe a child, or maybe a spouse has a relationship with power. So, I'm think when I hear that, I think of the known and the unknown, and the friction between the known and the unknown. Like there's what I know, there's what I know, I don't know, and there's what I don't know, I don't know. And the relationship between what I know and what I know, I don't know, that awareness of and that there's some type of relationship I have with my own demons and my own potential and the people that are in my life, those below me in power, above me in power, and to the side of me in power, right? Like peers, boss, subordinates, that circle of life that helps me audit myself of like, am I really as aware of what I know I don't know as I can be? That has a relationship with figuring out or getting closer to what I don't know. And all this has to do with growth, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
evolving as a person, evolving as a business owner, evolving as a friend, a life partner, a parent, a child, so on and so on. So when you mention that, I think of the fear that I have because I'm trying to strive and do things that scare me. The fear that the false confidence that I could get that I need to give to myself to try to be successful on the other side of that could end up undermining the success that I achieve when I stop listening to my CFO, for example, or I think that I'm not going to get eaten by the bear because it's like that saying, you want to know that you're not that important, tell someone else's dog to sit. I think it was like Mark Twain. So those are some thoughts that come up when we're talking about 30 days of thought. So those are my thoughts on your thoughts of my thoughts that are no longer my thoughts.
Yeah. So I want to, you know, kind of, because I do want people to pick this up. So I'm going to share. I'm going to be vulnerable right here and tell you
Right?
what I wrote
Wow. All
uh,
right.
on air. Um, the first line there. Um, so this was out of the one that's on page 26 and 27 about exponential growth. Right. The quote was, growth itself is not a linear process. It might not happen today and it may not happen tomorrow, but all great fears are worth striving for. I wrote, all great fears are worth striving for. I wrote it again. And I said, the pain of birth is a great and wonderful child.
Mm,
We must keep this in a memory because all great achievements come with setbacks, trials, difficulty. But in the end, what a great gift. Um, I went on to write, the adversity Jesus faced and the pain of the crucifixion allow me to do what I do today, from my faith. Um, but I also will never face that type of trial, and his promises that we can and will overcome when we face the fear. Focus on the result, not the situation. Remind myself of past mountains attained, figuratively and physically. I mean, I've climbed those mountains.
mm,
Uh, be thankful and remember that all gifts have come out of that adversity or that
wow.
fear. And then for you, the other acronym for fear is face everything and rise. When we see that, go towards that's what scares us, because a lot of times when we can do that, if it's there, if it scares you, I think a lot of times there are situations where maybe not. If a lion scares you, you're not maybe necessarily going to run, towards that. But I like the idea of running towards the roar, because the roar scares you. And if you run towards it, so if I run from that relationship that I'm afraid to have, if I stop running away from it and run towards it, then I'm going to be a better person. Whether it's a promotion, whether it's just doing this is very, saying that was very scary for
Mm,
me to share those things. What I wrote, because I didn't read that before. I didn't know what I was going to read down here, because
wow.
all I had read was all I wanted to focus on today was that one quote, and that came out. And this is one of the things I was talking about. Like, I think I could just focus on that for a week or a month, right? And like, what does it mean? I know I'll come back to it because I just gave it to you and our audience. It's like, man, like, what is there out there that's just kind of scaring the socks off me that I need
Mm.
to pivot and look towards? Like, what is
So
this little
part of
inside of
the
me pushing me?
go ahead. Sorry.
No, good, go.
what a question that I have for myself is
Mm-hmm.
what is the utility of 30 days of thought
Mm-hmm.
outside of myself writing, reading a lot from my own development. So the read to think, write to develop, speak to let go, listen to hear the unsaid. These are four pillars of culture matters. Really, of 30 days of thought as a process. What's the utility of 30 days of thought for anyone? Well, it's to brush up against something so that the reader becomes a writer, can share their thoughts through the social platforms. And this is why there's an implicit challenge to love in it. Because when I share my thoughts online, from my observation of culture, is telling me, and I think others, to delete people, delete comments, to block people. Everywhere I look, like at the time, especially when I was running, that's
Mm-hmm.
all I see. And I think there's a connection between the decaying of the values that make us connected, like compassion and empathy and reason and the ability to have direct conversation with our critics and things. And how I was treating my social platforms before I had this realization, as an example, was like training me subconsciously to be less of a lover and less of a leader in my life. So if I was going to ask what's some of the utility of 30 days of thought, it's a meditation for someone to then go practice. Because when I put myself online, right, I put my speech online, I'm going to get criticism, I'm going to get judgment. And I think you know, that's really how I relate to that judgment will
Mm-hmm.
reveal there, yeah, how I relate to that judgment reveal me. And without the reading and the writing, I think the speaker, and I'll speak for myself,
Mm-hmm.
before I did more reading and writing, and before I listened to my leaned in more and interviewed people and loved my enemies better, you know, culture didn't matter. It was something else. It looked like culture, but it was something else.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the utility of the book? It's my belief someone's going to put themselves in. If I'll speak for myself, if I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
put myself in this position to potentially gain favor of an audience, I better be able to handle my audience when they decide to throw rocks at me, or else I'm going to be the president for too long. Like,
Yeah.
there's a term here,
Uh-huh.
and my term won't be forever. My students, as Nietzsche said, this the student that doesn't outshine the master has let both themselves and the master down. So the like, if I was going to ask you, what's the utility of 30 days of thought? It's made me a better leader in the world,
Mm-hmm.
in actual environments that I wanted to be called to lead. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
made me a better leader. Going through the process regularly, it's just like, all right, I'm reading, to have a thought. Like, I disagree with most of the thoughts. Even in the book, I'm disagreeing with myself. It's not my book, it's the reader's book, and it's a process for thinking and sharing, and then it's a call to action to love my enemies. Because when I put it on social media, people are going to say that thought is not helpful, or you are scummy, or
Mm-hmm.
and all of that's quality information. It's quality information, because I agree. I'm gonna find agreement. There's got to be something there useful.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because Nietzsche said, I have to be able to. I'm paraphrasing because this one's a tough one. I have to be able to hate my friends and love my enemies. Something like that. I have to be able to. It's backwards. I need to be able to hate my friends
I love my enemies.
and love my enemy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because those closest to us, you know. So anyway, you know, just for at least the audience's sake, like, what's the utility of something like that to go into? It's who I'm becoming as I keep revisiting this
Mm-hmm.
process. It's really a process. It's not like my book, my memoir, or a theory of culture. Although there's, if you really, you know, read it, like get in there, there's a narrative, but
Mm-hmm.
it's still very, very much a process for someone to get to be, in my view, as prepared or more prepared having read it than or gone through the process than not to speak publicly, for example, or present on social media, for example, and be ideally more capable of leading in the comment section, frankly, to just make it easy. Like, because the comment section, I think, reveals our culture. You know, I consider them competitors. We're competing for uh, the piety of our fans, in a sense.
Yeah.
I have competitors that are saying essentially, even if it's indirectly, to hate your neighbor, to hate my neighbor, because that's what I hear when I hear hate. You know, you got to get haters. You know, or like, what is it's a made up. In my view, it's just a linguistic. I've never met a hater.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm.
that's some of the call to action for why the book can be helpful. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Someone could create content or curate their content, whatever even that means. Like, I'm not content. I'm Jay.
Yeah.
You know, so what are we? You know, are we content now?
Right.
Because we've been recording this conversation between us. Yeah, we're essentially everyone is eating us right now. That's how I think. They're eating us, Eric. They're eating us. They're
Yeah.
just feasting on us, whatever they think we are or who they think we are. So yeah, 30 Days of Thought is definitely my own work. Like, meaning I'm doing that for me.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote every thought out for me, and I revisit that process so I don't become a monster.
Mm. Well, let me ask you this question so we can get to it. And I'll probably ask you
Oh yeah,
again.
when do we start the podcast? By the way,
Yeah.
I'm still recuperating from that introduction, or not your introduction, from my introduction to myself. I'm like,
Oh,
what the heck was I saying? Like,
that's good.
I'm embarrassed. No, I'm good. This is good. It's fun.
I'm gonna just come right out and ask a why question, Jay. Why does culture matter? Like we talk, I hear a lot of people talk about it, but why it is it, I want your answer because I think you have a different spin on it as well, and I like it. Why does culture matter, Jay?
I think it's meaning. I think it's purpose. I think there's a connection between profit and meaning and purpose, because profit comes before innovation. Profit in the hands of stewards of profit, like leaders that we trust because they keep showing us that they live in a way that burdens all the opportunity they have to stray from who they once were. They're stewards of the profit. I think culture is people. People matter.
Hmm.
How we live, how we represent ourselves, how we burden all the choice that we have. You know, right after we hang up here, I can do all sorts of things that contradict all the idealisms that I'm sharing here.
Right.
And I have to choose not to do the things that I might feel I want to do because I'm so free. Um, so that's the initial thing. It's like culture matters because who's worked for a company that they that I don't even need to finish the sentence.
Yeah.
Who's been in a position of where people were relying on them, that they felt out of place, not prepared, but unprepared, who, for, it could be a interpersonal. It's such a interpersonal family. It could be city, like who's living in a place that they believe they'd prefer being somewhere else. So culture matters if we're going to say in the business context, meaning, purpose, results. What are we really doing when we're growing a business? We're bringing products and or services to the marketplace. Well, what's that? Ourselves, customers.
Mm-hmm.
There's an exchange of goods for services, products. There's exchange, right? Money for value. People are in that. The productivity of the people, the customer coming back, has a relationship with the people that are working. And yeah, it's a puzzle. I don't think I like puzzles. I like people puzzles.
People puzzles. I
So
like
to
that.
me, it matters because it's a people puzzle. And then it seems to be mattering more and more in the world, which I'm curious about why, right? You ask why enough, you never get an actual answer because why is
Mm-hmm.
one of those interesting questions. But that would be some answers that rise up. People matter and work matters and people are part of work. And that's a shorter answer than
What
it could
que
be.
Yeah. What questions do we need to be asking inside of companies
Hmm.
to create better cultures?
Well, you put it on our show. I'll shout out the Culture Matters podcast, Eric Guy. You said in my household, in our household, our goal was we have values, uh, not just rules.
Mm-hmm.
Our goal is to embody what we would, our goal is to embody what we would want from our children. So something one has to ask yourself is, do I believe the people I'm seeing as leaders in my organization, like in my employment, do I believe they're living what they expect me to? And if I don't, I've got to, I would say, just as a person, share that. Stand up for oneself in a tactful way.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on the tyranny of that organization, one's either going to be asked to leave or they're going to have to leave. Right? People aren't necessarily asked to leave North Korea unless they do something against. But they can. Well, they can't really leave there because they'll get
Right.
their family. But people leave other easier to leave countries that are less free. Right.
Right.
So those are some questions or thought experiments. You know, another thing is, what's the what's the story of the organization? Do I know it? Do the leaders know it? Where does the organization come from? Why is it in existence? Where is it going? Those things aren't clear. Are there management in place that are bought in?
Mm-hmm.
Are the leaders bought in? Are they going somewhere? Are we going with them? Another thing they ask is, do we gather? If we do, how do we gather? How do I feel when we gather? How do we, you know, because if it's not like exciting, something else you said on our show together about the people that don't look forward to their Thanksgivings as families
Mm-hmm.
in a company. If we're not looking forward to the gatherings, then it's smoke, right? Where's the fire?
Yeah.
Another thing to ask is, I thought of this 2 years ago. Is the A, B, and C. Person A has an issue with person B, so person A goes to C about B, but not A to B. Person B has an issue with A and goes to D about A with D. Person C goes to E. And now you see where I'm going.
Yeah,
A,
because you just posted this
B.
the other day, like last
Yeah,
week or something. Yeah.
That's something that rose up a few years ago.
Uh-huh.
And because when I was working with families in the succession, that's an active thing. It's not a
Right.
past tense, but just triangulation that happens with succession of a business that manifests even beyond blood.
Right.
So A and B, and that'll manifest. This is another thing that you shared on our podcast. I loved it. The enabling culture versus the empowering culture dichotomy. If we have management in place, and we will, because I think in the journey from founder to CEO, it's a psychological journey that has to do with education and experience, right? Knowledge, experience, and wisdom. And they're not always in the same order, especially we're talking about entrepreneurship. So from the founder to CEO, the founder has to learn how to be a CEO. And part of that is going from enabling behavior to empowering behavior. I'm using your language now on top of mine because you're a good teacher. Enabling behavior is where A has an issue with B and goes to C, and B goes to D about A, right? So A goes to C about B. And then before you know it, C and D are going to E and F
Yeah.
about each other based on A and B. And then before you know it, X, Y, and Z knows about A and B or their assumption of A and B. And a good metaphor to throw into this would be that telephone game that people hear about where you say the name and then
Right.
it's different at
That's
the
a
end.
great, yeah, it's a
That's a
great
symptom
analogy.
of A and B and C and D and all that. And so what happens is now the organization is only worried about people and can't talk about ideas.
Oh, yeah.
So it's riddled in arrogance, fear. It's like your book, Love and Fear. That's a fear culture, reactive culture. We're not proacting, we're just reacting. We're not able to respond to conflict. So we're not responsibility. We're now the organization is like, everyone stinks. We need more mandates. And so it becomes overly accountable
Hmm.
because that's like something people mess up all the time. Accountability is a byproduct of responsibility of because it's a symptom. Because when I tell the truth, I'm holding people accountable. Like we
Hmm.
hold our government accountable when we say don't impeach on our free speech. We hold them accountable by standing up for ourselves. We'll have to do that proportional to our government's ability to respond to the clear guidelines in the Constitution of how to treat us. So anyway, those are some things one could ask, like, all right, how responsible? Because it's also how responsible am I in my job? Like, where does my responsibility lie with the potential lie I'm living within? Because at some degree, institutions become there's a corrupt element of institutions that I think management teams set the tone of how corrupt or not the institution is. And that's where people like yourself come in and the healers, right? The people in our professions. One of a mentor of mine says, Alan Weiss, he says, people like us exist because companies will breathe their own exhaust. So you have the management teams and you have the people that are relating to one another to get the job done for the customer, right? To bring these products and services to the marketplace. The people like us are like the rabbis and the priests and the pastors outside of the organization, kind of keeping the communication flow, reminding the managements that there's, we're all still people here. So those are a couple things like, do I trust my company?
Um,
Did I lie in the job interview?
yeah.
How much did I omit in the interview? How many questions did I ask the person interviewing me? Did I do my research right? Abraham Lincoln. If I have 7 hours to chop down a tree, I'll take 6 hours to sharpen my blade. How prepared was I when I was going to look for this job opportunity? Is it Kiyosaki, right? Just over broke. What's my personal purpose in life? Am I just expecting the company to give me all those things? If that's the case, God, I'm probably not going to be happy anywhere I go. So there's a conversation of individual responsibility of the people. There's also a conversation of how responsible the management is to the people. and it's an interplay. What I don't like hearing, or I don't like thinking, I would love your thoughts on this, is like, when the institutions can become overly focused on their people. Oftentimes I've seen that's a symptom of the management's not being focused enough on the customer and where we're going.
Hmm.
Like they're not at the next level of education, awareness, and interaction. So they're overly focused on the people. And so I try to focus on bringing them to the future,
Hmm.
working through the strategy, working on the things that are far away, so that and really, why are we in business? Who are our customers? Who are they not? And like, because and one last thing on that, I think that social like companies by and large are becoming more inverted in a sense, more overly, like when you hear the word culture, people immediately think, oh, this is about the implicit the implicit understanding, or I'm sorry, presumption is, oh, that's about appeasing employees,
Hmm.
giving them things or making them happy. No, it's not. It's not. I mean, it could be perceived that way, and um, that's not going to help anybody. It's really about being bought in, and this is going to be leadership bought in to actually where it's going and why it's going there and how it's going there. And that's a constant breakdown. It's like you got to get your car re-oiled and everything. And that's why people like us exist, I think, to
Hmm.
help do that. So no, yeah, I've had, yeah. So I'll just stop talking.
Okay, so I'm gonna have you back, Jay, and we're gonna talk more about culture. There's a couple other questions that are just more personal things because I love some of your habits and some of the things that you say. So I'm going to ask you this piece here. Uh, what book would you recommend to our readers? What the other than your book, right?
Yeah.
What's something else that you would recommend that has inspired you or really moved the needle for you?
I like I have a list in my phone, Charlie Munger's Almanac.
Yeah.
I have an internal list of books I made for our people like within the institution. Oh,
Hmm.
hey, I got a new one that I got today again. I'm gonna go see in person, hopefully in the end of the month. The heir of this person. It's called Unstoppable.
Uh
The
huh.
Auschwitz survivor and penniless. Oh, yes, Siggy B. Wilzig's astonishing journey from Auschwitz survivor
Mm.
and penniless immigrant to a Wall Street legend. Guy survived harrowing acts. He survived in Auschwitz, ended up in the U.S. with nothing, convinced his friends to invest in this oil company, ended up getting on the board and then becoming the leader of the company, and then ended up like impacting Wall Street, starting a bank, which eventually sold to Chase. Huge story,
Wow.
unbelievable story. One aside, generally when I'm recommending books, I always want to get to know the person, like
Mm, sure.
who are they, where are they at, and that, so it gives me anxiety even just throwing books out. But but like Charlie Munger Almanac is a book that I'll gift to people like crazy. Howard Marks is the the most important things for anyone interested in personal finance is important. If you like biographies, Unstoppable that I just mentioned. If you're a bibliophile and you're like a big reader, Charlie Munger's Almanac. If you're like a book collector, Margin of Safety by Seth Klarman. If you're an investor, if you're fiction, Anna Karenina is like my favorite book. I cried at the last page, and then I called my friend and told Ted just told him about it. Anything Dostoevsky. Maps and Meetings are a great book for somebody
Yeah.
that like us
Uh huh.
or are interested in psych and whatnot. Some other trying to think of categories, right? Like uh, uh, anything by Jacques Pagsep or like Joe Ledoux for neuroscience
Hmm.
is good. I like Herbert Spencer for sociology. I like Anne Lamott, Bird by Bird for writing. If anybody like wants to write a book, Daily Rituals is a great book about like writers and their different. You asked for one book, but I can't. I
That's
haven't.
this is great. I just this is what I knew I was going to get because I just you just are a consumer of knowledge and want to continue to learn and I hope just rattling those off like that inspires somebody that's either doing that to continue to do it or hasn't done it and is ready to pick it up and do it to do it. The next thing I have for you, and only two more questions, Jay, because I know we're running out of time here. Um,
I'm definitely coming back if you'll have me.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll
Good
talk
practice for
culture
me.
more. Yeah, good practice. Um, I know the answer to this because you just shared it with me, but I want more of what you think about it. What quotes on your mind right now, and what's going on with that?
Yeah, what did I say? And I want to see if I memorize it. Father,
Forgive them.
yeah, for they don't they not know what they have done. They do not know what they have done, or
They have,
they not know. It seemed a little poetic.
yeah, they do not
Father,
know what they
forgive
have
them, for
done.
they not know what they have done.
Have
Is that
done.
the way to say it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I read that this morning. I was like, oh,
But what's that mean to
okay.
you?
What's my interpretation of that? I don't know what it is, but well, I have lots of theories, but man, I like the idea of turning the other cheek. So I'm thinking of interaction, right?
Uh-huh.
I, I a transgression upon me. When I think of that quote,
Uh-huh.
forgive them for they know that what they have not done. Let's use an example of it in the workplace.
Uh-huh.
I'm hurt by something my peer said to me. I'm, but I don't say anything because maybe I'm afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or I say something and how I say it, I'm taking out everything of how I feel on my counterpart because of how it cut me. Now, all of this doesn't take into account their intention because I'm assuming their intention. That's number one. So that's a psychological uh, interaction of like omnipotence, all knowing. I'm sorry, that's controlling. Omnipresence, all knowing, or omniscience, all knowing. Omnipresence everywhere. Omniscience is all knowing. So I'm assuming that I know their intent.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm gonna take that energy I'm perceiving as negative, or it's coming through me as negative, and I'm gonna give them negative if I attack them. If I don't do anything, I'm building resentment, and that eats culture. Resentment
Mm-hmm.
eats culture. It decays trust. And then what about this one? So that's if I don't even know the intent. I'm assuming. Let's say that their intention was to hurt me, my counterpart, with their words, with their actions, whatnot. That quote still combats that because it's like, well, my ability to actually live the value of love would be the redemptive nature of working through that,
Mm-hmm.
like letting that go, or giving the person the opportunity to redeem it, like to improve next time. Like, is a murderer, a murderer? It's past tense. Now, you have to make a value judgment. Do I want them moving in next door to me? Well, that depends. So see where so anyway, that's what comes about when I think about that quote that I read this morning. I had never crossed that, but I've thought about that idea a lot of time for a long, long, long time. It's fundamental in culture building, forgiveness, um, like filtering the filtering of negativity, or the working through of conflict, interpersonal,
Mm-hmm.
internal, external, interpersonal. And so that's what comes to mind, of maybe some utility in that because like somebody that didn't mean it. All right, so somebody that didn't mean to hurt me because I'm assuming that they did, and then I'm like you put in your book, I'm reacting. Um, well, I didn't love them. I didn't move us forward. I moved us both down. I added to the right. We went down. We didn't go up. And then if someone really did mean it, that just revealed the limits of my capacity to love.
Mm. Wow.
And so, but I'm not a saint, right? But I could strive for. I've had that idea for a long time. I don't know where it comes from, um, but hopefully one of my enemies meaning anyone that challenges anything I have to say, if I'm too wrapped up in my how I'm perceived or the things that I think I know, that I'll treat them like enemies. So hopefully, some of my enemies or my friends can help me on the show. If they listen to it, they can tell me, hey Jay, this is what I think about you,
Right.
and then that'll give me an opportunity
Okay.
to learn.
Last question before we wrap up, Jay.
Okay.
Uh, for those watching and listening, what would you tell people, because the podcast is your best day yet? What advice would you give people uh, to have their best day yet?
Yeah. Cool.
Mm.
Yeah, Kierkegaard comes to mind. What if everything in life was a misunderstanding and laughter were really tears? Yeah. Yeah, I know there's people that, yeah. The first thing that rises up is like, who do I need to call? Who do I need to call I'd rather prefer not to because
Mm.
I'm scared or um that I could convince someone else of why I shouldn't call them and say my piece. That'll lead to a best day if that's done.
That's right.
But other than that, you have drugs, you have alcohol, you have sex, you have success, you have podcasting, you have books. You could write them, you could read them. I've read too many. I write people letters. That's therapeutic. That's
Yeah.
helped me. That's helping me get close to the things I'm really afraid of. The
Yeah.
conversation I'm really afraid of that. So best day. I mean, probably the opposite of what they want to do because we're like, oh, I want to throw it all away and move to the Himalayas. Maybe you just want to work, have kids, and then die, and then that was a good life.
Well,
Like, what are you running from? So to have the best day, probably do the opposite of all the things that you got excited about doing from listening to people like us. Do the opposite of any of those things that came to mind. So the whole list, oh, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this. No, it's probably just do what you were already doing, then you stop doing because of some other anxiety. Just do the work.
let's do the work.
Maybe show up, make your bed,
Yep.
uh, eat food, drink, go to the bathroom, watch, That's so funny. I got it. I say, stand up for yourself. Speak up for yourself.
There you go.
Say what you really think.
I like it. I love it.
Lean in.
Lean
Start
in.
a podcast. Be a good host like Eric and actually care, to what I have to say and ask questions that he's thought
Yeah,
about. Like, what an honoring
that's
act.
it's great advice because I was petrified to do these.
You're
Of just
so well, but it's such a gift of yours to be present with people, to care about people, and to give them space to be themselves. Like, yeah,
all right.
best day.
That's
Yeah.
good. You're coming back, right?
I hope so. I mean,
All right. I got lots of
it's
other
one of my fears
questions.
is I don't get invited back to things. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I'll have our folks reach out to you right now, right after we record this, because I'd love to have you back on, Jay. You make me think. I think as the
Thanks.
old saying, iron sharpens iron. You've really helped me sharpen up a little bit. So again, folks, look him up. Host of the podcast Culture Matters, not hard to find. And he's throwing out podcasts left and right here nowadays, and they're really good. A lot of good information there. And author of 30 Days of Thought. Get it, try it out. Let us know what you think. We appreciate you watching, listening. Jay, again, thanks for coming on. That's all for today, folks. Like, subscribe, get notified, all that good stuff. Visit us at centerforvictory.com. And just remember, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, make this your best day yet. We'll see you soon.